Woo! And we're back, baby. This is Not Another Podcast, episode 20. How you guys been? It's been quite a minute, and you know the vibes. This episode is brought to you by Web Secure Services. Most businesses don't know what cyber attackers can already see about them. Web Secure gives you that picture first and a clear plan to close the gaps before they're exploited. Web Secure helps organizations identify, understand, and reduce cyber exposure risks before attackers exploit them. For all your cybersecurity needs, follow Web Secure Services on LinkedIn and visit websec.abacusai.app. That's websec.abacusai.app to learn more. And today we're joined by a guest, a great guest who is making his first appearance on our podcast, Mr. Lyle Timotheus, a good friend of ours from way back. He is the co-founder of Syncly, where they build chat commerce infrastructure that helps appointment-driven brands automate bookings and capture revenue entirely inside WhatsApp. This is an exciting project that Lyle's been working on for some years now, and he's here to tell us all about it, man. And you know the drill. I'm joined by my co-host Ndima Silwana. And yeah, gents, welcome back to the pod. How you guys doing?
Welcome back, gents. Welcome to
Mm-hmm.
Lyle. Yeah, bro, I'm excited to go again. It's been a little while, but I'm excited for our first guest in a minute. Welcome, Lyle.
Yeah, bro. Welcome, Lyle. How are you, man?
Thank you so much, Sipo and Dima. I do appreciate it again. Once again, thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be part of this. So, yeah, man. Thank you once again, gents. I'm keen.
Yeah. We keen to have you here, bro. So first things first, tell us about Syncly, man. How did we get here? What's the journey? Where did you start?
So, Syncly is essentially a chat commerce infrastructure. What
Mm-hmm.
we essentially do is we assist businesses in the beauty and wellness space to accept bookings and payments within WhatsApp. So that is the primary focus. And
Yeah.
then what we're essentially looking towards is to become the WhatsApp OS for the full journey of a buyer's life cycle, if I can put it like
Mm-hmm.
that. So,
OS is, sorry
yeah.
to interject, sorry, but is OS operating system, I'm assuming.
100%. So when we speak
Mm-hmm.
about the WhatsApp OS on the conversational commerce space, we essentially want to be the rails for the business in the sense where they can capture leads, convert those leads into paying customers, and then also to perform customer support and customer retention. So we kind of give them a full circle loop. So they're always in
Mm-hmm.
contact with the customer as well. Yeah.
Okay, that
Mhm.
sounds exciting, man. So, how do we get here, bro? Because we all use WhatsApp for chatting, but there's
Mhm.
always like some innovations happening inside WhatsApp. So, this seems like this is the next step, and it sounds convenient because we all use WhatsApp for chatting and catching up and just instant communication. So, I assume that making deposits and bookings would be just as easy.
Exactly that. We try and
Mm-hmm.
get the end customer, the buyer, to the checkout page as fast as possible. So it's always
Yeah.
been the goal so that the merchant can get the money into their account as fast as possible. So we try and employ a 3-step checkout. So it's take what
Mm-hmm.
you want, pay, and then the customer gets an update and the merchant. So essentially, how we actually got to this idea,
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you guys a bit of a background or a story, is that it was, I think, last year or the year before, 2024, December, January last year, 2025. We've pivoted quite a few times with Syncly. We actually started
Yeah.
as a platform for teachers where we connect mentors with mentees in the
Mm-hmm.
teaching space. So that was the initial plan. I had a hypothesis that, cool, this could solve a particular problem within the South African education context. So my love was ethic, cool, let's head into the ethics realm.
Yeah.
Quickly realized that we weren't kind of able to monetize it. And then I kind of said, you know what, there needs to be something else because mentees can't actually afford the services of the teachers that are qualified
Yeah.
because they don't have funds. Then I pivoted to something in the content space and then spoke to a couple of businesses. And then someone actually pointed that they had an issue with WhatsApp and their website not being
Mm-hmm.
in sync in terms of the inventory. And then it got me
Yeah.
thinking that, cool, WhatsApp is something I'd like to dive into a bit deeper. And yeah, we are now busy with Syncly for this current version of Syncly. The one we pivot to has been now since
Mm-hmm.
January of this year. So yeah, 8 months.
8 months. And why beauty and wellness? Why that space?
Beauty and wellness, because that's what the data gave us. We first had
Mm-hmm.
a broad lens where we said, cool, we want to attack all the businesses, but then we had, I think, an influx of like 200 businesses due to the social media marketing, which was good. But then we actually started analyzing the data to see who are the people actually using the platform the most? And we said, cool,
Mm.
lots of service-based businesses. Then I said, no, let me go deeper down into the data. And then we said, okay, our niche seems to be people in the head spa space, in the
Mm-hmm.
nails. And then we're like, cool, let's just put an umbrella around it that we're going to focus on the beauty and wellness space. I mean, we have other verticals in the platform that are using it. I mean, we work with the HR businesses as well,
Mm-hmm.
and also mental health businesses. But the primary focus of the use cases for people now have been in the beauty and wellness space.
I see that you guys are doing a lot of good work within the beauty and wellness space. I remember seeing one of your statuses on WhatsApp where you also created a website for this particular lady, and she was just giving great feedback about your business and how you guys are so good with your service and just friendly. So, my question for you would be, what's your motivation towards the beauty and wellness space, and what have you found about the beauty and wellness space that works so good with your business?
So upon looking at the data, we actually, like I said, I went deeper and I actually tried to
Mm-hmm.
figure out why this particular niche, and then it occurred to
Mm-hmm.
me that someone who works in a salon or a barber, their
Yeah.
hands are full, right? Their hands are full.
Mm-hmm.
And they either get phone calls or they get WhatsApp messages. And unfortunately, if you are servicing a client, you can't necessarily leave that client and answer the phone
Mm-hmm.
call, because that would be a
Mm.
bad representation on your business.
Yeah.
So I started using that angle, and then it occurred to me that, cool, by the time they get back to the client after they've serviced the client they're working with, that client has already found a competitor. So you lose
Yeah.
that income. And I mean, the income could vary from like 300 bucks to 1,000 rand, depending on
Mm.
how much people want your services at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So we kind of approach it from that angle. And then other verticals, other businesses approached us and said, you know what? I see this plugging into our business. And I was like, okay, I
Yeah.
didn't know, type of thing. So people are smart enough to realize that this thing could potentially plug into anything. And as you've highlighted, I think 90% of the South African population uses WhatsApp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most of us are on WhatsApp, and we use WhatsApp mostly for communication, but the space of chat commerce, I'm not too sure how many competitors or firms are in this space. Could you just shed light on that in terms of how does the space actually work?
100%. So there are a few competitors in the space, and these competitors are, I wouldn't say locked to a specific region. For example, Sleek Flow, which is based in one of the Asian regions, they're
Mm-hmm.
quite massive, but their focus is also on the life cycle, the buyer life cycle. But obviously, they've capitalized and worked in that market. Is that they're just more of an
Mm-hmm.
omni-channel. So they are a omni-channel concept. They do WhatsApp, all the other stuff
Mm-hmm.
like Line, WeChat. So they kind of do the whole thing, Instagram and Facebook, where we've said, you know what, we're just going to stick with
Yeah.
WhatsApp because that's what our local market wants, and that's what the data has been
Mm-hmm.
indicating to us. Another competitor that I also see that has entered the South African market recently, they're from the UK, is Q. So it's Q Desk, but their segment is more on the customer support side of
Yeah.
things. So the market is fairly big, but it's still, I would say, a smallish market that's not matured yet in the South
Mm.
African context. I think it's only recently where people are saying that, cool. The reason why people want to move over to WhatsApp is that it provides a level of personalization to the buyer or
Yeah.
the person chatting to you. So you don't get this mass
Mm.
marketing that doesn't feel personalized for you.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
So the market is
see.
quite big. The market is quite big, but there aren't massive players in Africa or South Africa, if I can put it in that perspective.
I see. And I suppose it works well in the beauty and wellness industry, in the space where you serve your customers, because beauty and wellness essentially is a personal thing. I guess that's why it would work for you to be the medium people use to do their business and exchange money and also make bookings.
Yeah. So essentially, what we wanted to solve is when I started speaking to the beauty and
Mm-hmm.
wellness owners, I asked them what seems to be the problem. And they said that they were getting an influx of queries. They were either doing the marketing on socials. So
Mm-hmm.
paint the picture for you. They'll put up a video on TikTok as well. And then they'd say, you can message me. The client would speak to them on WhatsApp. But then it
Mm-hmm.
became like 30 people speaking to them, and then they would need
At
to
once,
offload the
yeah.
client. Exactly. So they'd offload the client to another website, and the client would need to log in and register. And by the time the client is done, the client has filled out so much information, they forgot why they're there. So what we essentially say to the
Mm.
client is like, cool, bring your customers onto WhatsApp, but chat to them, but also close the deal within WhatsApp. So you don't say to them, cool, go to my online store to do this. We do everything within
Mm.
WhatsApp. So that was the key
Yeah,
for us.
that sounds very interesting. And I think what stands out for me is the whole personalization thing of using WhatsApp to close your deals and secure bookings, because it's all the more convenient because you're speaking with the owner as a client, right? As a customer. And the conversation might be automated in some instances, but it also has that personal touch because essentially this person who's going to be treating your hair or doing business on your hair, for lack of a better term, is a person. So you don't want to speak to a robot. So I understand how this business works for you as Syncly. I'm just going to shift over to Ndima. I'd like to know if he has any questions for you before I carry on.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So if you had to break down why people in the beauty and cosmetics industry, why they would need your product, like if you could put it into layman's terms, why should the consumer actually indulge or actually take a look at the product? Like, how do they benefit?
Our value proposition is simple. We help you get your first paid booking within 60 seconds, right?
Mm,
So when a customer
Mm.
chats to you, we don't steer them off to a website. We say to them, if you want to pay now and you want to pay with a deposit or with any means, you do it within WhatsApp. So there'll never be a redirect to another website, right? So with the other approach, which could be a bit tedious, is that added friction. We go off to a
Mm.
platform.
mm,
Is this available? Is that available? Now, everything is inside WhatsApp. You'd never have to leave it. You complete everything, payments made, and everything is there for you from a notification perspective as well. And you also get the reminders so your customers don't have to log into your email to kind of go see, do I have a booking? When is my
mm,
booking? You get notified a day or a couple of hours before the time within WhatsApp. So we reduce the friction for the end customer, because at the end of the day,
Mm.
the goal is for the end customer or for the merchant to actually get the money as fast as possible.
So it streamlines the entire process.
100%, 100%, yeah. So we focus more on the sales conversion aspect of it, because every business has got a different sales conversion workflow. So
Mm-hmm.
not every business wants to accept deposits. Other businesses do it because they want to safeguard their time or their availability. So they'd rather accept deposits, a small portion, but then it's non-refundable. So every business is sort of different in the beauty and wellness space. We went in with a blanket approach, but then quickly realized that we need to offer flexibility to the merchant to decide what they ideally want to offer, how they want to actually get the money into their account as fast as possible. So, yes, we have seen it with our trial. We onboarded a business and they closed a client within, like, I think it was 60 seconds. That was the tagline at the
Mm.
time.
So is it always 60 seconds?
Yeah, no, not always 60 seconds, Dave. I'm going to be honest. So, yeah, that was nice to see, like, cool, within 60 seconds, paid, done and dusted. So, yeah.
But the time thing is a real convenience, I'm assuming.
100%, 100%. Yeah, time is a major thing for the business, because if you
Mm-hmm.
take a minute or two not to follow up with that client who's inquiring about your services or your availability, if you take 5-10 minutes, the chances of them actually committing to the sale is low.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's called WhatsApp and it's instant messaging for a reason. I
True.
think you can still get away with it if it was an email. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't live in those times anymore now. So my next question, Lyle, is you've told us about Syncly, right? And everything that works about Syncly and why it works as a business. But I'd like you to take us from how you got to where you are now. Were you always an entrepreneur, or is this an idea that came with your experience from university up until you decided, okay, let me start my own business? Like, what was the journey?
Mm. So the journey started actually when I finished my degree in varsity at Stellenbosch. I studied economic sciences, and the goal was simple. It was one day I'll start something, one day I'll do this, one day I'll do that. But the goal at that moment was, let's go work for one of the big banks, because I heard they were looking for economic students and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So no real plan, to be honest with you. And I was like, do I do that or do I do a postgraduate
Mm-hmm.
degree type of thing? And then I was like, you know what, let's just enter the job market. Started doing a few jobs, applied for some data analyst roles, enjoyed at the one company I worked for in Cape Town, but also like, not me. And then I ended up in the financial industry, insurance, sold a bit of insurance for a couple of months. And then my brother at the time, who was studying his law degree, we had a discussion the one afternoon. I remembered we were in the kitchen and he said to me, like, you know what, we need to do something a bit
Mm-hmm.
different. We had the conversation and it's like, we need to come up with something from a business side and an idea side. What can we do, to be like, cool, we've built this. What can we do? Okay. I said, cool. I don't have any expertise in the tech or with computer science. I mean, he studied IT not at university, at high school. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, I'm sure we can figure it out. cool. We started experimenting with a few things while I was working and while he was studying. Put out some projects there and made a little bit of money freelancing, the standard
Mm-hmm.
route that we thought was going to get us to where we want to be. And then years went by. I eventually landed some jobs here and there, but then I always felt that I needed to start something that I was fulfilled. Not that I wasn't fulfilled at the jobs I was employed at or that I performed in. I just felt that I needed to do something with him. We kept doing things
Yeah.
on the side. It was probably simply took us 8 years. But 8 years
Yeah.
of other failed businesses that we tried within the tech space. So it was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
trial and error. It was late nights of testing this, doing that, didn't work, pumping in money that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a level of delusional that you have to be a bit delusional if you want to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to put it out there
Yeah.
bluntly. I don't think
Yeah.
there is a recipe. There's a saying that we said the more we try, something has to eat. It's like with soccer, the more shots you take, you're going to score eventually. So we had that kind of mindset that we're like, cool, let's
Yeah.
go with something. Let's keep testing, let's keep trying. And then eventually we ended up here, so there's nothing like an overnight success. It took us about 8 years to actually find something that worked,
Yeah.
So yeah, this is how we got to it.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't go the traditional route. We have no background in the computer science space. We've been self-taught developers. And prior Syncly, I worked for a prop tech company based in the US and learned so much from them. And yeah, I was like, cool, let me implement what I've learned from them and, implement it within Syncly from a structural operational perspective. And yeah, we are here today. And Syncly is what I said, 8 months. So yeah, that's the journey that we've had to walk,
Yeah.
from an entrepreneurial background.
So it wasn't necessarily an overnight thing where you were always in
Mm-mm.
tech and you discovered this is what you want to do because you spotted an opportunity. It was a series of long experimentations which eventually got you to where you were. And that's interesting because with those experimentations that you and your brother made and through the series of failures, what are some of the lessons you took away? And what did you find out about not only yourself, but about the people you work with and what necessarily kept you going in this space?
Well, the thing that stands or stood out for me was grit. You need to have grit.
Yeah.
You need to have grit. If you don't have that as an entrepreneur, it's going to be very difficult to continue because imagine getting told every time you start a project, no, we don't want this. It's not going to work. No customers, nothing. It gets demotivating quite quickly, to be honest. You think you're onto something, you're building, and then it doesn't come to fruition. Nothing is working. That's not successful. And I mean, you can have all these plans on paper, but it comes down to the execution. Are you executing too early, too late? Are you executing correctly? So grit is one important thing for us. In terms of the life lessons, one thing I had to understand is when to say, we've tried, this isn't working. I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we want to believe that we can try, we can keep pushing, we can delay it, So for the first venture, we're like, cool, let's give it another few months, another year. And eventually you start seeing the more you build, you realize, now this is working, let's scrap it. You kind of do it over and over and over till you eventually like, okay, this makes sense. It's easy to sell in the sense of I can explain it and people understand it. And then people start paying, That was the one big thing was obviously that bit on top of the grit. Life lessons, especially for my brother and myself, we have loads of these conversations, is that we needed to get rid of this inferior complex that we aren't the right people to be building this or any product out there, Felt that we in South Africa, because you don't need a lot of tech startups in South Africa, Is it going to be cringe if I speak about it on social media? What will the public's perception be about me? What if it fails? So all of those things, the self-doubt crept in, I get you
Got you,
there.
got you.
It's
Yeah.
a self-doubt, it creeps in.
There's something I want. Yeah.
Also the aspect of your family or your peers not understanding you. I mean, there was a
Definitely.
time where I did the transition into the startup space. The guys were like, you know what, we've got an opening role here on the dev side. I can put in a good word for you, but you'll have to do an interview. And I'm like, do I go back to that comfortable security, or do I stick to this that's unknown? It's unpredictable. There's no 100% stability in the sense of an income, But yeah, I think also the family aspect, you need to have a good partner. If you've got a partner that understands what you're doing and they can see that you are ambitious, you are putting in the hours, you're putting in the work, then it becomes a simple thing. But obviously, you don't want to waste your partner's time if they can do it because it's a lot of sacrifices, I'd be lying to you guys if I say to you guys there's a work-life balance. There's that I learned. So you could also maybe call that as a life lesson. There's no work-life
Mm-hmm.
balance. It's extremely difficult to balance what you're trying to build and a
Yeah.
family. So if anyone says you they have a work-life balance, just pop them a message. I can speak to because I'd like to hear what their plan is.
What
How
their
do they
secret
achieve it?
is, bro. Yeah, I can
Exactly.
imagine. Mm.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Lyle, so you spoke about grit and about how it seems like the most important thing that's going to fuel you through a lot of the difficulties that you will encounter as an entrepreneur. What can you say? And I wouldn't blame you if you can't answer this, but what would you say drives your grit? Because everyone says that there's a level of toughness and grit that you need to get through certain things and to keep pushing even when there's no visible reason to. What would you say fueled your ability to get through everything? Because I know you mentioned your wife was a team player, she was always in your corner, but is there anything else that you can say like really fueled your desire to push through all the obstacles and all the difficulties until you got to where it started to finally make sense?
Mm.
Mm, good question, Indima. So my one answer to that is pressure. One word, pressure. I love
Mm.
pressure.
Mm,
I wake up every morning and I'm like, wow, the pressure forces me into a corner. I can either back out or curl up in a little ball and be like, cool, let's accept it. Or I can figure out ways to maneuver my way out of this thing. So I enjoy that feeling. Like, oh, I have to really make something of this type of thing. And
Mm.
that kind of gets me out of bed in the morning where I'm like, cool, I didn't achieve this yesterday. How do I achieve it? Plus achieve more with the added pressure of I need to deliver this, I need to deliver that. So
mm,
it's that for me where I'm like, cool. I read somewhere where someone was like, if you feel pressure, it means you are doing the right thing and it's doing something important. So I
mm,
view it in a different lens as opposed to where like pressure's like, I'm driven by fear. I've had to get rid of that notion of focusing on the problem, focus on the problem, but also focus on the solution of how do I overcome this problem at the end of the day. So, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you need to solve problems. So you're always going to have that. But also just to add on top of that, Indima, is to get comfortable with hearing the word no.
Definitely.
really?
Um,
Definitely,
exactly.
bro.
So good practices I
Definitely.
always say to the guys is like speak to many women as possible, and then you can count your sort of your nose from there.
but
and
but
then you
Lyle,
and then and then yeah, yeah.
yeah, no, I was just gonna ask a little bit of a tangent question, but do you think the inability to get past all those no's, do you think that might be why so many people give up before they finally like
Yeah.
start getting some momentum? Do you think they just crumble
Mm.
under all of the rejections and the no's?
Yeah.
Mm. Good question. It is a mindset thing. I spoke to other guy a couple of months back, and he asked me, "Am I doing this project as a side thing or my full time?" So I said to him, "Look,
Hmm?
I've gone all in on this. I've had my savings pumped into here, my pension and provident." So he's like, yes, he likes that mentality because he
Mm.
says he equates it to pregnancy. You're not half pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not
Yeah.
pregnant.
Mm,
So it
Definitely.
is definitely a mindset thing where it's like you say, they get so close to it, but they're like, oh, what if this happens? What if that? And I feel like that does destroy the momentum that you've built up, because I'm a guy who's simple,
mm,
like, cool, let me spend most of my time trying to figure out the way, then to figure out what could go wrong. So I'm an
Mm.
executionist. I like
mm,
executing the plan. Sometimes I don't
Yeah.
plan as well, but I'm like, cool, let's put this thing into play as fast as possible to see.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a mindset, Indima, where I can't actually tell you if you are born with it or if your environment shapes it. Because my dad has always said to me, it's easy to be difficult, but it's difficult to be easy. I'm still
mm.
trying to figure out what that means, but he uses it quite a lot in the aspects of when we speak about business. So yeah, I do think it is a mindset thing that I do think you can learn it or develop it, but
Yeah.
again, I feel like the
Yeah.
environment also plays a bit of a role in determining at what
Mm,
point do you give up or what point do you just like, cool, this isn't for me type of thing. Yeah, I mean, my wife has always said to me that you either get the people that are innovators and the people that work. It's not to say that they can't do both. It's just that
Mm.
mm.
the mindset that it takes to be an innovator, an entrepreneur,
Are you willing?
yeah. Are you willing to forego X for Y? There's always a trade-off. I think I speak with another founder, and we always have this conversation, and we say that why did we quit our job? We work less hours and we attain a big salary for more hours that we're working now as an entrepreneur, and you earn nothing. So I come back to you have to be a bit delusional that what you are doing
Yeah.
is going to work.
Mm,
So yeah.
Exactly. I think the things I've taken away from what you're saying, Lyle, is that yes, it takes a lot, but attitude is everything. That's the one defining factor that determines whether you succeed or fail, particularly in a space like technology and entrepreneurship where everything is on you. You're the CEO, you're the HR guy, especially during the early stages. You're the code developer. You wear so many hats that you have to know how to balance everything. So my main question is that since you're in this tech space from a South African perspective, what is your take on the broad IT space in South Africa and the industry you work in? What are some of the things you found about working as a techie?
So first off, the landscape of tech here is obviously different to you say in America or UK. We can say something similar to the UK, but I mean obviously in the
Yeah.
US they move way faster than what
Mm-hmm.
we do. What we found out once we started building is that compliance is a headache in the
Yeah,
sense that
definitely. Yeah.
there's too much red tape. For
Mm.
one, not a lot of these small tech startups that I've spoken to or that I know the founders of, they have some excellent solutions, but they
Yeah.
will never get into the room with the bigger businesses, even though they can
Mm-hmm.
they can articulate that I can solve this for your business, but they're not going to get into the room because of compliance. You can have the
Mm.
introductory call, but the compliance is a massive red tape. I suggested this for the one guy that was part of the Youth Start competition. He's quite involved in the structures within government. And I said, you know what, it would be nice if there was a bit of leniency shown towards tech startups in
Mm.
South Africa where
Mm.
we could focus on building solutions without spending too much time on the compliance side. So just if
Mm.
you have a popular version, make it a lighter version for us so that we can
Mm-hmm.
do X, but when we reach a certain threshold with regards to say revenue, we need to then apply
Mm-hmm.
for more compliance in the popular perspective and stuff like that.
Mm.
Maybe not the best example, but the programs the government also put out there from a relevance, that I've attended as well. I think they paint us
Mm-hmm.
all, especially in the startup space, with the same brush that the consultants or the businesses that come and, give us some guidance, they come at an angle from a established business where I'm a
Yes.
startup.
Yes.
I want to know what it actually takes to get it to the corporate level or an enterprise level.
Mm.
That's where the programs are slightly lacking at the end
Yeah.
of the day. That for me is what I've seen. It's always around the
Mm-hmm.
compliance. When we enter those rooms, it's one of the first
Yeah.
things people ask: Are you compliant? How is your data stored? And stuff like that. And I mean, as a person trying to solve a problem, that's also sometimes the last thing you think about from a compliance
Mm.
aspect. So yeah, that's obviously one of the stuff that we've picked up. From
Mm-hmm.
a technology perspective, we have
Can I
some
just
great
ask you
people.
something just
Yeah.
before you
Mhm.
you go further? When you talk about compliance, right, can you just briefly elaborate on what you mean, as not many people would understand what you mean in terms of compliance? Like, are these the regulatory policies or?
Mm. To paint a simple picture is essentially
Mm-hmm.
how is your data stored? Is your data encrypted within your database? So in other words, if a
Mm-hmm.
hacker does get access to your database, can they see people's credentials? Can they see all the
Mm-hmm.
data that you've done there? Or is it actually encrypted where they can hack into the system, but the data is kind of jumbled up? So they won't
Mm-hmm.
actually understand. So one of the questions that we did was, is our data secured at rest
Mm-hmm.
level, or is it done before and stuff like that? So those are some of the things. Where is our data stored? How is it
Mm-hmm.
handled? What data do we need? Are we a data processor or are we just a data controller? So there's two difference. Like, do we collect personal information of people and store it on our system, which increases the
Mm-hmm.
risk of the system being hacked, or are we just like
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a funnel or a bridge through? And then with that information, we then go to the insurance and say, cool, we'd like you guys to insure the company because of X, Y, and Z. These are compliance, these are policies in
Yeah.
place. So if anything happens, we are covered from a insurance perspective at the end of the day. And
Mm.
also to get me started on the insurance, it's a very difficult thing for them to also to put tech, so like you can insure a house and a
Mm-hmm.
car, you can put a value on it, but with tech it becomes a bit tricky to also simplify it there for
Yeah.
them so that they understand it, because sometimes they don't understand it and then the premiums might be a bit excessive. So that's obviously on the insurance side of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, the compliance is essentially just making sure that you are in the right space, you are collecting the information that you need. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can say, I need this information to fulfill a particular activity, then
Mm-hmm.
you can do it. But if someone does a due diligence within your platform and they say, why are you collecting people's ID numbers? And then you, for
Mm.
example, say, oh, I thought I needed the ID number for this. There is no thought when it comes to the compliance. You have to
Yeah.
know
You
why
have
you're
to know
using
what you're
something.
doing.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. So I have to say, for example, I need Sipo's home address because he's bought a pen or a stationery set for me so they can fulfill the order and deliver it at his home. But if I have your
Yeah.
ID, they're gonna be like, why do you need to use ID? So
Yeah,
it's
bro.
kind of,
Why are
it
you
doesn't
trying to
make
scam
sense.
me now?
Exactly. Exactly. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Nah,
100%.
I hear you, bro. And
Mm.
with what you said about compliance and just the difficulties you face as an entrepreneur, especially when you go into these big boardrooms within government or the bigger corporate space, there's particularly when it comes to tech entrepreneurs or just tech professionals, there's a certain lack of understanding about what people in the tech space do. And like you said, people tend to be painted with the same brush because of that lack of understanding. What I'm getting at is with that lack of understanding, I want to put things in context because from a broader space, what I've recently found out is that South Africa ranks amongst the lowest countries. I'm just pulling up the stat right now because I want your experience and take on this. South Africa ranks, right, 47th out of 53 countries globally in terms of the National Entrepreneurial Context Index. So what this index measures is the ease of doing business and the ease of helping entrepreneurs and small businesses grow in the country. So we're amongst the lowest in the world when it comes to this. I'm hearing you talk about the difficulties you face and in terms of the red tape. This is what we deal with as entrepreneurs, right? And I think I'd like you to just tell me about your experience a bit more about that because you get to a stage where you're starting up as a business, right? And then you find difficulties in having to grow your business to a stage where you can hire more people, give them job opportunities so your business can grow. It can make that leap from being a small startup to a well-established organization. And when dealing with the public sector and their policies, they tend to paint startups in the same brush as a big corporation. And that is where the disconnect is in terms of policies in the country. So, yeah, what has been your experience been like in terms of having to grow your business? And yeah, can you just tell me a bit about that? And what are some things you could possibly change about working as a business person in South Africa, especially in the tech space, and just some of the things that could make it a bit easier to do business in our country?
So I'm going to come back to the red tape aspect. The red tape is too much. I like using the bank as an example. There's
Mm,
no startup friendly bank here in South Africa. I think there was a
yeah.
Lula at the time. I think Lula works with Access Bank, if I'm not mistaken. Their system was nice. It was easy to set up. But then, I don't know, they've stopped that. I don't know for what reason, if I'm going to be
Yeah.
honest with you. But that's a simple example. It takes so much effort just to get a bank account.
Mm,
And you might ask yourself, okay, cool, but why do we need that? Well, if we want to process online payments, we need to have a bank account connected to the
mhm.
payment gateway. You can't just sign up
Yeah.
for Yoko and not have a bank account linked to that Yoko account. And it makes no
Mm,
sense at all. That has always been, I think, has been the red tape aspect. We've
mhm.
got great ideas here in South Africa,
Yeah.
but it kind of doesn't go to market because of red tape, but
Mm,
also because of the relevancy. Government, again, they're missing the ball with implementing a corporate or an enterprise level on a startup where I think we should be
mm,
viewed under a different lens at the end of the
yeah.
day from a startup perspective, whether you in the tech space or in that space, because every business has got various needs. So
Mhm.
not bashing the government for their programs, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I've,
definitely.
I've always said,
These are
you
just
know, I,
challenges we're highlighting. These are not
yeah,
critiques, but these are real challenges you're highlighting as an entrepreneur in business
mm,
and things
yeah,
that entrepreneurs would need help from the public sector in terms of doing
mm,
business and creating more opportunities for people to work.
100%, 100%. And also,
Hmm.
I think it also comes down to an educational aspect.
Yeah.
For one, if my target market is small businesses, maybe they are in the suburbs or either in the informal settlements, can we go in there and educate the people to a degree
Yeah.
where we can be like, cool? For example, Uber don't service the informal market. They don't go in there
Yeah.
obviously for safety reasons. But why can't a guy in that space start something there
Mm,
without spending too much time on the compliance? I understand it's an important thing, but there are genuinely
mm,
guys with amazing ideas in the informal settlements that
hmm.
I feel like cool. They don't get the spotlight for it or the means or the know-how.
So how can we make it easier for them,
Yeah,
basically?
100%,
Hmm.
100%. And then another thing for me is, I know this is a big one for the entrepreneurs, is the notion of funding. You know,
Mm,
I need access to money before I can start that. But the thing is, if you don't know if you're gonna have customers, if you don't have paying customers, in my opinion, then you're kind of taking a gamble on someone else's wallet. For me, it's
mhm,
simple. If you have a business, whether you have one customer or two, it doesn't matter. You've shown that this can generate money. I just need to scale it.
mhm,
So a lot of the time, guys
mm,
will be like, "Cool, I need access to funding before I put my fingers on the keyboard." Yes, 100%, but there are smarter ways to validate the idea as well. Another challenge is I would bring up, just to stay on topic here, is the
mhm,
program awareness from the government. Sometimes the programs that they have are really good, but it is not marketed well, but also the applications are long and tedious. So I like
mhm.
comparing the way we do applications here to the US. I'm sure you guys know of YC, Y Combinator, the
Yeah, yeah,
startup
yeah,
school.
yeah.
So the application is quite seamless. It's quick and easy, like 10 minutes. And I asked myself, why do I have to fill out 20 pages on Google Forms to fill out for a
Bro.
particular platform? Yeah, you're an entrepreneur, your time is valuable. Let's get it done as soon as possible, quick. And then we can always have a follow up call because that's what these accelerators tend to do. But I think there needs to be more focused accelerators within South Africa for
Yeah.
tech, even if we could group it according to different industries. Because
Mm,
I know every accelerator has got a specific mandate or they have a preference, like they only want to work with fintech startups. But yeah, I mean, it would be nice to see a YC within South Africa or within Africa
mm,
where we can apply to as well. Because again, the problems that we are solving is not going to be the same for the companies in YC or that side of the
mm.
world. You know, it's not a cut and paste solution. Like if it works there,
Yeah.
it's not generally going
Yeah.
to work here. So we can't adopt that mindset because I think a lot of the people in South Africa try and build solutions or solve problems that are we can see it's on the ground level. You know,
Mm,
I see a lot of these logistic companies popping up on social media now that want to compete with Uber and Bolt. I'm going off a
mm.
tangent here quickly, but I know
Yeah.
logistics is one of the toughest spaces where you can make money. The margins are very tight there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting how they compete with these guys as well. Because
Mm,
me and my brothers say, I don't know if Uber's making a profit. You know, so that's also the thing. You
mm.
never know if they are making a profit, so you try and compete with them as well. And South Africans, we are price sensitive. So
Mhm,
yeah, I also said I'm gonna touch back on is the lighter compliance as well. Just to come back to
mm.
the question, implement something that is lighter for the tech guys. You know, I'm
Yeah.
sure in the US there's easier ways to go about things. So I'm not saying compliance should be the last thing on your mind, but it shouldn't be a thing
Mhm.
of I can't speak to this big business because I don't have my POP sorted. I don't have an ISO certificate.
Yeah.
I don't have insurance. My cybersecurity is not up to standard, and all of
Mm,
those things. I'm saying those things are all good and well, but
mm.
getting those things can be quite expensive. I've seen it
Yeah.
is pricey to be compliant. So again,
Mm.
it's another barrier to entry. I need to have money to be compliant. If I don't have those documents, I won't get into the room. A tricky situation you find yourself in as a startup. Yeah.
As a startup and founder, so the main barrier would be so the main challenge is the barrier to entry, which requires
Mm.
access to capital. Damn.
Policy.
Policies. So that's why I wanted to bring this up because it's a very important challenge. Every entrepreneur faces this kind of challenge in terms of policies because you're working within a certain industry and there are rules and regulations that you must comply to in order to do your business and to thrive in that business, especially when it comes to tech, because tech is a relatively new industry in South Africa and there's not a lot of understanding when it comes to people outside of technology as to this is how we do business and this is what works for us and this is what we need to help us do business easier but also help other people outside get better opportunities within technology. So that was very interesting to hear what you face because I'm sure there's millions of other tech entrepreneurs in the country who face similar challenges. And just to loop Ndima back into the conversation, if you had the power to change how business is done easier in the country as a techie, what would be some of the solutions you would bring forward?
Some of the solutions, it's an interesting one from a tech perspective. If I had to be honest, it would be lovely if there was guidance around negotiating when you start speaking to potential investors. Actually know how to actually be in the room and negotiate. Like I said, there's people that are interested in working with us, but they want this, they want that. If there could be, I know we have access to it, but I mean, the information might not always be readily available, or it's not for the South African context. And yes, you can get a mentor, you can signal in, and you can chat to them, but again, it's such a difficult thing to say, like, cool, the solution I'm trying to do here is going to work for everyone. Again, every business is different. Every business has got a different need when it comes to the tech space. So for me, I always come back to the compliance. If it could be done lighter, a bit better, 100%. But from a solution perspective, if I'm going to be honest, it comes back to the education. We need to educate the end user, the masses, on how things are, functioning within the tech space. We have access to these mediums now. I think that article that you've highlighted, that we are ranked 47th in the world, it touched a lot of the inequalities or the access to the infrastructure. We have an infrastructure issue within South Africa. How do we ensure that we don't put the information behind a paywall, or there's another barrier to entry? Is there other ways people can get access to this information? I don't know. How does that look? Like, do we create a global library where anyone can just come on and have access to it? I don't know. It's like asking these AI providers to say, cool, just create a light version and make it cheaper for people within the African country, like a light version, but we can still have access to things. But yeah, it's a very difficult thing to say, cool, the solution I'm going to implement or suggest is going to apply to everyone, because every business is different. I'm in the conversational space, and someone in the medical space might have a different, headache. And then my solution might not play nice with him at the end of the day. So yeah, I can't actually give you a straight answer to say that this is a solution I would implement from a tech perspective, because yeah, it's very difficult to kind of pinpoint it. If I could, for especially in our space, it would merely be giving people the access to the education, because yes, you have access to the internet here, but what about the people in the informal settlements or in the rural spaces? I actually spoke to another lady the other day, and she says in the Eastern Cape there's still the thing of there is no reliable internet connection in certain parts of the Eastern Cape. And I'm like, it's 2026. Why is that a problem?
Unbelievable.
Exactly. So at what point do we be like, cool guys, let's sort out the infrastructure problem here, because we have an infrastructure issue. And that's why I'm all about not just being another application. We actually want to be the rails. So we want to be the infrastructure for this, So keep it within South Africa. But I've seen with other businesses, you need to take your business out of South Africa before South African people
Take you seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a tricky one, but I tie it down to finding a solution that educates everyone, because it's very difficult also. I mean, we have 11 official languages. How do you do that on scale? So that's also one of the things that I also realized when we started with Simply was the education barrier or the language barrier.
So you've pointed out a lot of different obstacles that South African entrepreneurs can't avoid, right? But if we had to zoom out and just look at all of the things that you think South Africa is currently doing right business-wise in terms of creating the conditions for entrepreneurship, if you could boil it down to maybe one or two things each, what do you think this country is currently doing right, and what do you think we're doing wrong?
Can I just say one thing before you answer, Lyle? Just to make it a lot easier. I think the one thing we're doing wrong, bro, is the red tape. There's just way too much red tape and way too many barriers to entry for businesses in South Africa, especially small to medium businesses to thrive. If we could focus on creating policies that are more effective in helping small to medium businesses do better and not only just surviving, but growing and getting to a point where they can employ more people to help alleviate the employment crisis, especially within the youth. I think we do a lot better as a country from an economic standpoint, and also just helping out the youth, because there's a lot of youth in our country with extraordinary business ideas, but the thing that kills them before they even start is the red tape.
100%. You touch on that again, it comes back to the compliance aspect. You have an idea, you want to start something, but then there's a barrier. There's a barrier to entry. And how we overcome that, I don't have the answer to that. It's a different thing. That's for the policymakers to come up with regulation and stuff that is friendly, but it doesn't hurt the economy at the end of the day. In terms of what we are doing right, I think there's a lot of South African companies that are solving problems that are unique, but locally it's only maybe in South Africa. I've seen a lot of that with regards to competitions I've been taking part in, and they are solving much needed problems within a particular niche in South Africa. And it got me thinking, where I was like, how do they scale it? But then there's no actual room for scale, because it's maybe not a global problem, but it's a problem within the region here. So I think we are doing the right thing in terms of solving the problems within South Africa. We're getting that right. What she was obviously touched on is the red tape, that we are not getting that right. again, I can't understand again that I'm not a policymaker.
Yeah.
If it's just difficult to implement, if it takes time, I'm not saying we should copy the models from the US and
Yeah.
deploy it here in South Africa. We don't
Mm.
know if those models will work. What I've also seen is that we are, especially get right, is we understand our people's buying power, right?
Mm.
And we price accordingly in the sense of subscriptions work well overseas. They don't actually work well in Africa, in the African context. So what I've seen a lot of guys do
Yeah.
is they use pay-as-you-go models. And it got me thinking about, I think we grew up in the era where you bought prepaid airtime,
Prepaid
you bought
airtime.
five,
Yeah.
and if the 5 rand's done, it's done for the day, So it's like a pay-as-you-go system. And a lot of the African people are starting to realize that we can't actually do the subscription because, yes, it's a fixed amount that gets charged or passed on to the merchant or to your end customer. But if
Yeah.
a person can still use your platform without them having to pay a fixed fee, they know I'm going to use X. This is all I'm paying for. I've seen a lot of those platforms cropping up now, and I think it is due to AI. People are getting that model right, but
Mm.
the constraint of that is if you rely on a third party like us, like Meta, we also don't have the power to say, yeah, we have a pay-as-you-go system. Not that we're at fault, but then again, we can't service the smaller businesses, because we
Yeah.
don't have a pay-as-you-go system. So then it comes back to we are then a sort of barrier to entry again because we say you need to pay this monthly subscription to use the single platform. Whereas we want to say you can use single platform as much as you want, but you'll get a bill of the X amount of days and you can fulfill it from there. So it depends on the actual business. But again, we are doing things correctly from those 2 points in South Africa. I'm just
Mm.
trying to think as well. What I've seen, one thing we're also getting right is the community building in South Africa,
Yeah.
especially in the tech space. I think there is a communities in Johannesburg. It's an AI community
Mm-hmm.
where you combine the non-technical guys with the technical guys, and they actually have
Mm.
interesting conversations where people are like, this is a problem here. I wonder how AI can solve it. And then you start getting guys
Mm.
working together, and you never know what happens to those ideas at the end of the day. So, yeah, I think people are realizing that we can't just copy and paste an idea that works overseas, maybe in the US, and just kind of deploy it this side. It comes down to like, cool, I can build everything, but the distribution is the important part. All the people
Yeah.
in South Africa actually purchase my product or use the service that I'm offering. So just
Mm.
to close that bit is basically, I think people are building the right thing most of
Mm.
the time, but the distribution, people are also focusing well on that. I've seen it done exceptionally well on TikTok for one, where a lot of the startups here in South Africa are using social media in a way that I wouldn't say it's corporate, but it makes you want to use the product because the person is not selling you a service, they're actually
Mm.
selling you a story. They're telling you a story and you want to use that product because they speak to you. So we're getting those things right. And it's, again, more on the marketing side of things, we're getting those conversations right with the end customer. But also I've also seen, like I said, going back to the communities, I'm seeing a lot of the European founders or angel investors start communities within South Africa. So this is also a good thing. And they actually allowing South Africans to join those communities because they understand we have a capital issue, but they start speaking to us and they can see how we could potentially solve it based off their
Mm-hmm.
experiences because they've invested in other European companies or other South African companies. So you're kind of getting more people in a founder mindset community now, which is lovely. It's very niche and it's very small, but
Yeah.
there are some excellent nuggets that the guys share amongst us all. So yeah.
Something interesting that you mentioned, Lyle, with regards to people consuming your type of product, but also how South Africans consume tech products with regards to subscription and pay as you go. Because what came to me is that that's what essentially killed BlackBerry's BBM because the subscription thing was fixed. It was BIS. And we as South Africans and Africans in particular like to consume things as we can afford them. So that's very interesting. That's very interesting to realize and understand because it never really dawned to me until you've mentioned it the way you have. So I think my next question would be, what is your ultimate ambition when it comes to Syncly?
Oh, you're asking me difficult questions I haven't prepared for. It's like an exam I haven't studied for.
Come on, bro.
um, the idea is
Mm-hmm.
essentially we want to be the rails for this particular solution in South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if anyone wants to use WhatsApp within the buyer's journey lifecycle, we want them to be like, I've seen Syncly.
Mm.
Like we want to be that type of thing. That is the end goal, is to, like I've said, position it as a WhatsApp operating system. So we're only
Yeah.
focusing on WhatsApp. We don't want to be an omni-channel service where today we're doing WhatsApp, tomorrow we're doing WhatsApp and Telegram. That's not the goal. So the
Mm.
goal for us at the end is to essentially become that, I wouldn't say a household name, but
Mm-hmm.
more in an African context, tie every piece of software together. So if I'm going to paint it to you in layman's terms, we want to be like Zapier, but for WhatsApp,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
I
give
see.
the businesses that flexibility where they can build whatever they want from a
Mm-hmm.
workflow automation perspective that suits their business or how it fits into that. So that is kind of the end goal for us. Beyond that, we have some other projects in the pipeline, very exciting stuff as well. It's not really syncly orientated or focused. It has to do with WhatsApp, but it's a different spin, it's a
Mm.
different angle. And again, I don't know how the market will react to it. So
Yeah.
more validation for me as well. But
Mm.
the end goal is simple, build something that people value, that I can add value to a business's life or
Mm-hmm.
workflow to be more efficient at the end of the day, and then hopefully sell it one day. I wouldn't say for good money, but hopefully sell it and then you hand it off to the right person to take it to the next level. Because I think as
Mm.
founders, we can only take a business to a certain level, and you need some sort of corporate mindset to take it to the next level,
To a more
because
organizational space, yeah.
100%, 100%. Not that I
Mm.
that I can't take it to that level, but sometimes you have your builders and your innovators that just want to build,
Mm.
and then you have the other
Yeah.
guys that like, cool, I can, I built the car, but you can
Like commercialize it, yeah.
100%, 100%, yeah,
Mm.
So
It's interesting.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Lyle. It's interesting that you said that because I was going to ask you, like hypothetically, let's say you and your brother with Sinclair, you hit every target you've ever wanted with the business. Let's say you're pulling in up to $1 billion, let's say hypothetically at this point. What's the next step? What what do you where do you see yourself doing with Sinclair or with any other project at that point? What is the next
Mm,
step? Like if I put the number in front of you and I say, congratulations, you've now made $1 billion of revenue. What's next
mm.
from
Mm.
there?
So if that happens, the plan has always been, I've made a promise to my wife that I will stop these ambitious ideas, but I said I
Okay.
can't promise it.
Yeah, yo,
Unfortunately.
that's unrealistic.
I can't guarantee.
Yeah.
I can't guarantee it. So one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that I've always would have loved to get involved in is hardware. My thing that I'm quite fascinated about is actually
Yeah.
hardware in the sense of building drones. So this is one
Mm.
avenue me and my brother, I briefly touched on it, is that it would be cool if we could build something in that space. I have a few ideas
Yeah.
that could potentially tie into South Africa's army or military using the technology that we have, but in the form of drones. That's something I want to work on. Once this thing comes to, like, that's cool. We've done this project. What's the next thing? We'd like to go into the hardware drones type of space.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have no knowledge about it, but I am certain that if me and him put our heads together, we can kind of
Mm.
knock a few things out of the park in terms of an idea or an MVP or a prototype. So, yeah, that would kind of be the goal. And then after that, I don't know if I have more ideas that I would like to pursue, to be honest.
Just retire.
That would be
It's
the
a
goal. And
billion
then that would be
dollars,
the
bro.
goal to kind of just sit back, reap
Hey,
the
bro,
rewards, you know?
don't. Hey, bro. Elon Musk has $1 trillion, bro. There's no limit now.
What do you even do with a
Elon Musk is
trillion,
a
bro? Yeah.
trillionaire.
What do you
Elon Musk
do
is
with
a
that kind of money?
trillionaire, bro. Yo, man's trying to go to Mars, bro. Yo, G.
Yeah, that
A
number doesn't fit on
trillionaire.
my phone screen.
You know,
I can't
like,
even
Yeah.
imagine it. It's insane.
Yeah,
bro,
it's
like
insane. Yeah,
Elon
hundred
Musk is a
percent.
trillionaire, Jen. So, hey, if Elon Musk is a trillionaire, a billion will be just like a million in the future. So, all I'm saying is there's no limit, bro. Let's not put a cap of what you could possibly do in the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly that. Exactly that.
Lyle, just my last two questions for you is that someone who's listening to this episode right now and has an idea of what they want to do, or they may not necessarily be a techie, but they're listening to what we're talking about right now and they maybe want to get into the tech space. What is something you would like them to take away from this episode based on your experience and your journey?
So if you want to get in the tech space that you're not techie, I would say go back to the fundamentals. Go
Mm-hmm.
and learn the technology. Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no ideal path. to be honest with you. If you want to do cybersecurity, start with cybersecurity. If you want to end up as a developer, start with front end, start with back end. There's no playbook. There is some sort of guidance. They say start with front end, then go to the back end. What I would suggest is if you can vision what the skill needs to do for you, if you want to build a business and you need tech, okay, work backwards. If you know you're going to use tech in your business, try and work backwards. How do I get to the end goal? So for me, I would, before I touch any AI, I want to understand what the technology is made up of. How does it function? How does it work? Instead of relying on AI. So if you have an idea and it revolves around tech, apply yourself, go and understand the technology. Better yet, if you can apply and get into a startup or get a position. I always say startups is nice because they give you a role, but you end up working as the front end and the back end. You kind of learn on the go. You get the best exposure to different technologies and the way people work. I think once you have some sort of understanding of where you would like to plug in, because I mean, as you know, technology is broad. There's so many roles. I can't even mention all of them because it's just too many. So my thing would be go and learn as much as possible as you can without the use of AI and find work that you can kind of showcase those skills. Once you've got that and you're okay, cool, I want to take it to the next level. I'd like to build a startup. Then I would say start working backwards, like, cool, I need the skill, let me do that type of thing. And then you can say, okay, cool, this is where my skills would plug in from a business perspective. And then obviously, like I said, if you want to hire people for marketing because it's not your strong suit, you'd obviously hire for those people, I should say. So yeah, my thing is always come back to stay curious and just learn, right? The more you learn, the more you get challenged. Like, cool, I can implement this thing this way, that way. For me, I still learn on a daily basis because I don't know everything. Whether it's code I've done for so many years, I'm still learning a new thing every single day, whether it's complex, whether it's simple. But yeah, man, for me, it's just, again, learn, apply yourself, and believe in yourself. I touched on it earlier where I said, get rid of the inferior complex mindset.
Bro.
I think strip that away, and then you can achieve what you need to achieve. So you have an idea, I should have maybe started with this, write it on a piece of paper or type it up, because I think sometimes we tend to do, it's just like, oh, I have this idea, it's going to stay in my head, and type it up. Try and work backwards till you get to the idea, and then you have a clearer understanding of what you need to do. So you're kind of dissecting the idea, if I can put it like that. And then validate it as fast as possible. That means going on social media, speaking to your network, reaching out to friends and family, although I have very different approach to reaching out to family and asking them for feedback. Get it out there, let people validate it, and if they're willing to pay, then you're onto something. So that's always a signal. That was a signal to me. When people started opening their wallets for Sinclair, I realized, okay, it's nice. I didn't have to explain so many things. The guy opened his wallet, he said, cool, how much should I pay? I'm like, okay, cool, that's nice. It wasn't a difficult thing.
It's nice.
Ultimately, if someone is willing to pay and open the wallet, you are on a roll. You
exactly.
100%.
That's when you know the value speaks for itself, bro.
Exactly,
bro.
And also just to maybe extend on that a little bit is, if you have a product, once you've validated it, the best way is to get paying customers, because you've got a signal. People are paying for it. There you go. And sometimes you'd find out that you can actually sell, which is a tricky concept. I've had to realize that I could actually sell a product without having a product. So just to get people's willingness to pay, even if it's just $50, this guy gave me $50, I don't have a completed project. So what we've kind of done is essentially where we say to people, hey, can you use our product for free? For example, I just expect a testimonial or a review on the product, and then a referral. Then I go to the referral that they've given me and I say, listen, the price for our product is X, but we're actually selling it at a discount for Y. So I repeat that process over and over and over till I end up to like the fifth or the sixth batch of the referrals. I get closer to my actual asking price. So that's kind of the system we've employed here till we get to a good amount of people on the platform. But yeah, that's obviously if your end goal is to build a startup as well. But yeah, just to circle back, just continue learning. I don't think there's an end to it. Technology is constantly evolving, it's constantly changing. But if you want to, there's some great resources online. People are on TikTok as well, because a lot of people are visual learners today. Just consume as much information as possible. For one, my cousin has also studied IT, but he didn't take a liking to it. And I asked him, how many hours are you spending on the material? He's like, I'm only spending 3-4 hours a day. Because I was like, yeah, me and my brother, we spent about 17, 18 hours in the early stages. So there's a difference, at the end of the day. So you need to you have to put in those hours.
There's a different level of hunger.
I think it's anger,
Yeah.
but also I think the way people paint tech as this glamorous thing where I'm gonna
Yeah,
write
it's
code,
not, bro.
I'm gonna sit in Bali, I'm gonna have a good time, and I'm gonna make millions.
Sit
And
in
yeah,
Bali.
no,
It's not, bro.
I don't think it's that easy. You know,
People really that delulu.
I,
Hey, dog. Hey, dog. I'm telling you, people think tech is like this glamorous thing. I'm just gonna code, go to a nice coffee shop with my laptop, just be Instagrammable. It's not, bro.
mhm.
You need to learn how to code. You need to know what product you're building. Is that
Bruh.
product monetizable? Are people willing to pay for this product? Are you solving a
Exactly.
problem? If not, you're fucked, bro. Yeah, dog.
Exactly. You know, it's funny that you mentioned like that, Sipo.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah, now
100%.
you were saying?
I say you mentioned like that, like they glamorize it. It's such an unsexy career, but
Dog.
somehow Instagram has turned it into like, wow, you want to be in the tech space. I think there was a time
Yeah.
where every second person I had on Instagram was a tech person, and people were actually commenting like, we don't have all these fancy equipment. It's like
Bro,
they found a way to turn it into such a wow, that's the next big thing,
that's the
and they
next
sold
big
people
thing,
some dreams,
bro.
Because they they know the money is sexy, but the
Mm.
process isn't. That's why.
Yeah, the process is
Hmm.
ugly, bro. You
Yeah.
need a certain type
Mhm.
of personality. Like before I started my tech journey, bro, and seeing the kind of people who work in technology, they're not the easiest people to get along with, but I understand. You need to have a certain type of
Mm.
personality to work in technology.
Hmm.
And I get
True.
it.
Yeah.
I get it, bro. So, Lyle, I think my final question to you would be, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
Mm. To go back in time. I feel like Doctor Strange.
Mm.
Really?
Mm.
In the sense of not that I've made mistakes or anything, I don't live with regrets, is
Yeah.
maybe I could have gotten to things a bit earlier. Why I say that is I said to my
Mm,
Mm.
brother, imagine we came out pre AI and we actually, instead of having to go all those routes to study this, to do that, we could have just said, invest all our time into programming. We would have
mm,
probably been a couple of years ahead of where we
mm,
are from
Yeah.
now. So make some of those adjustments from a learning perspective. I would have gone back in time and be like, cool, you know what? Not that I wasted my time at varsity. Now I've
mm,
learned valuable skills. But could I have studied computer science? Cool. But maybe I could have done more learning that could have accelerated my growth within this space at a faster rate, so to speak, because that would be nice to have if I could go back in time and make some of those tweaks as well. It would have been lovely.
I see. And then,
Mm.
so if that would be your superpower, then ultimately you'd be able to change your fate. So that's what you're dealing with. Like you're dealing with people's
Mm.
destinies here, bro.
100%, 100%. So I can tweak it the way I want it to be based on the outcomes. So
Yeah,
yeah. But again, this is the journey of life. I think every day
yeah,
you wake up, you don't know what you're going to get. And I think that's what also makes it a bit interesting, man.
yeah, bro.
You have your dips, you have your ups, and I think that makes it
Mm.
interesting. Like you said, last week I was on up, this week it's not so good, for example, and then you're
Yeah.
like, cool, let's pick it up next week, and then yeah. So I think that also. But yeah, it's been a journey as well. As I've said to you, I think becoming comfortable with no's, but also not doing things expecting a certain outcome or result.
Yeah.
I'm saying plan for things 100%, but there's certain things that you can't control at the end of the day. You can plan as much as you want, but at the end of the day, if someone else has other plan, there's not much you can do. So yeah.
Hmm.
Also, maybe if I had a secondary power, I would say a better way to manage stress. I tell you,
Mhm.
I know
Yeah,
there are
that's how
some
you know
ways,
it's
but.
hectic.
Bro,
A superpower just to manage stress.
that is stress, bro. Yo, what are you going through, dog?
I'm telling you, it's
Yeah.
and I know for some people it can be fatal, when they end up in the
Mm.
depression zone, especially for founders, because I mean it's a lonely journey. Let's be honest, gents.
Yeah,
It's
definitely, bro.
it's
Yeah.
it's a lonely journey because in a way some people look at you as like crazy, you're an outcast. Why are you doing something that's got no
Mm,
guarantee? But again, until it works. And for me, I love the
mm,
pressure. Don't ask me why. It's just like cool. I like this. It's
yeah.
He was built
unpredictable.
like that.
So again.
Mm,
Yeah, I've enjoyed this journey. I've been happy. at other places that I've been employed, but I'm actually happier now, even though with the stress. I've got a bit of gray hair here though, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's
But I think it's just the beauty of working for yourself, bro.
Yeah.
This is why you enjoy it, because at the end of the day, whether it fails or not, bro, you won't have any regrets that you didn't go for it at the end of the day. And this is clearly working, and it's working on your own time. And the beauty of being your own boss is probably the greatest reward in working for yourself as an independent grinder. So I think that's why you love the pressure, because at the end of the day, bro, this is your responsibility.
true. 100%, 100%. It's like you can get some of your freedom back, maybe not
Yeah.
financially, but you have
Mm,
some time to do other things that you can do as well. And also, I get some of my time back as well. Not initially
mm,
now, obviously, there's some days where you're like, oh, I've got some more time to do X. I've got more
mm,
time to do a bit of this. But yeah, most days it's literally just doing the unsexy things. It's the repetitive tasks
mm.
that we don't put out there on the social media that people don't see. Because I mean, I'm not gonna lie, when something works, we're quick to put it on social media, but
Yep.
the tedious, repetitive tasks, we don't put it on social
Mm,
media. But it comes back to we need to show the people that this is actually what entrepreneurship is about. There are some highs, there's some
yeah.
lows, but there are certain prerequisites where it's like you need to do X, Y, and Z. That's going to be the norm for the next few years, type of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, and also to exercise delayed gratification. I mean, it took us 8 years
Yes.
to get to this point. Having that sort of mindset, it changes you in the sense of like, cool, I'm not sure if I'm going to achieve this or I'm going to hit that specific target. But you know what? Like you said, Sipo, if it doesn't work, you've at least tried. You can say, I
Mm,
tried, I didn't succeed. So there's no harm in giving it a shot,
definitely, bro. I think we can wrap it up like this, gents. One thing I want to say, Lyle, bro, is when it comes to entrepreneurship in South Africa, there's a different viewpoint people see entrepreneurs, especially in the early stage. There's a lot of discouragement from outsiders because people don't really deal with failure too well in our country
Oh,
versus other countries. And coming from where you've come from and the journey that you're on and the progress that you've made, bro, we can only salute you because we understand, bro, how difficult it gets sometimes in the journey. So yeah, man, we wish you all the best, and you're always welcome to come back anytime, bro, to the pod and just share your journey, man. We've talked about this outside the pod that yeah, bro, your story is still gonna continue, bro. So we only wish you all the best, and we're just excited to see what you're gonna do next, man. And yeah,
100%.
this has been yeah. Is there anything you want to say, bro?
Me or Ndima?
Both of you, man. Come on,
actually,
we're wrapping up now.
actually, I have one last question, actually. And it ties into something that you said close to the end. There is, if by chance there's some inspiring or not inspiring, aspiring entrepreneur, someone who's trying to do something but they feel like it's not quite, or yeah, they feel like it's not quite getting there and they're thinking about quitting, what would you say, like, to that person, someone who's at that point where they feel like they've been grinding at it for a long time but it's not quite, getting to where they want it to be? What would you say, like, to get them to just keep going?
Hmm. That's the thing, it's a very difficult thing to say because you know your business, you know yourself if this thing is gonna work.
Mm,
I like equating it to a relationship. You either know if this woman you're gonna be with is, you're gonna end up marrying her. You just have this feeling. Sometimes it's a gut feeling, you just know it. So to kind of answer that, I would say keep going, but if you are not excited about it when you wake up anymore, then I would say, maybe pivot the idea to something else because I've been there. I've woken up and I'm like, I'm not keen. I don't think this is going to work. So as soon as I think that starts entering your mindset, you must think, what else can we pivot this particular solution to? Or is it a dead write off where we're like, you know what, stop everything. Let's analyze the data. What does the data say? This is how we fix it. But yeah, as an entrepreneur, you should know when to quit as well. I think a lot of the time we don't speak about that. We like to say that this is my idea, my first
Mm,
idea, and it worked, but sometimes if you actually listen to what the guys have been through, it's a lot of trial and error.
mm,
So it's a lot of that. It's a thing of having a mindset of not saying you mustn't give up, but you can see if the thing is going somewhere or if it's going nowhere. You can also ask yourself if there are competitors in this space, how long did they take? But if it's a completely new product or a new market or a different segment or something else, it could potentially take longer at the end of the day. And then it comes down to your grit and your willingness to stick it out. Do you have that within you as an entrepreneur? Because again, that's one of the biggest factors, in my opinion, in terms of if a person is going to make it or not. So yeah, just I think having that grit is very, very important. But again, it's business to business. You know your business from a side of, do I continue, or am I feeling that this isn't for me anymore? I need to step away. And I've had loads of those decisions up until you feel like something is working. So yeah, I don't think you can actually get away with the entrepreneurial mindset. If you have it, you have it. It's just
Yeah.
a thing of how resilient can I be to change something I have, to pivot
Mm-hmm.
into something else, to be like, okay, it doesn't work for this segment or this niche, but can I deploy it somewhere else? Can someone else use it? And then you might find that cool, there's a commercial need for it. I found product market fit, and there we go. Because a lot of the time, products start with one niche or one view, they end up doing something different from when they started. I mean, we're a good example. We started in the edtech space, now we're in the commerce space. So different verticals, different industries. So it's a kind of a thing of trial and error at the end of the day. And yeah.
Gotcha.
Trial and error at the end of the day, man. This is the journey. This is what we do as well, man. Trial and error. What works, works. What doesn't, doesn't. So, ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you're listening to, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on the socials. We are on TikTok, on my personal account, on Instagram at _not another pod. And yeah, man, subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe, please. And this has been another great episode of Not Another Podcast. And we out.